After watching the Vice President, JD Vance, spew a barrage of white supremacist hate speech and anti-European segregationist racist bile on Fox, I feel a profound sense of sadness. Sadness for every war hero that gave their life fighting for European freedom from Nazi occupation and tyranny during the Second World War.
Europe is at risk, I think, of engaging in civilizational suicide. They are unable to, or unwilling, too many countries to control their borders. You see them starting to push back against that, and good, that's a good thing. You see them starting to limit the free speech of their own citizens, even as those citizens are protesting against things like the border invasion that got Donald Trump and a number of European leaders elected. So look, I want Europe to thrive. I want them to be an important ally. Part of that is going to be Europe respecting its own people, respecting its own sovereignty, and America can't do that job for them. If you have a country like Germany, where you have another few million immigrants come in from countries that are totally culturally incompatible with Germany, then it doesn't matter what I think about Europe. Germany will have killed itself.
To every Jew and minority faith group, person of color or asylum seeker who has struggled through immense suffering, persecution and abuse at the hands of people as misguided, uneducated and frankly offensive as JD Vance. Vance attempts to rewrite Europe's history to suit his own distorted, naive, nationalist and native view of the world. He uses contradictory sentence structure to mask his fascistic leanings, weird syntax and split infinitives, but we can cut through the grammatical malfeasance and decode his thinking. This is the return of Nazism. This is the return of the persecutors who have played a long game in order to sabotage American institutions and infiltrate an already broken electoral system to impose their minority view on America. If Germany takes in millions more incompatible migrants, it'll destroy itself? What exactly does JD Vance mean by an incompatible migrant? Because to me that sounds remarkably similar to Hitler's description of Jews in the 1930s. The leadership and people of Germany don't see migrants or asylum seekers as incompatible with their culture. They're too smart for that. They have empathy.
And Schumer is a Palestinian as far as I'm concerned. He's become a Palestinian. He used to be Jewish. He's not Jewish anymore. He's a Palestinian. Okay.
The ideology of Nazism was constructed based on a binary. The German nation was conceived as absolutely good, whereas the Jewish enemy was conceived as absolutely destructive or evil. In order to rescue the German nation, the Jewish force of destruction had to be eliminated or removed. Hitler described the German nation as a living organism consisting of the German people as good cells. Jews were called bacteria or parasites, pathogenic cells that had invaded the otherwise healthy organism. In order to rescue or save Germany from death, the source of the nation's disease, the Jewish bacteria or parasites, had to be removed from within the body politic. And within the political domain, any and all actions believed to be necessary to achieve the objective of rescuing goodness from badness are deemed justifiable. Hitler declared, "We may be inhumane, but if we rescue Germany, we have performed the greatest deed in the world." JD Vance, by suggesting that there is a cultural divide in immigration that should prevent Germany from absorbing migrants, is parroting Hitler's own ideology of hate. That there is the purity of nativism versus the pox of the other. Rats, lice, cockroaches, foxes, vultures. These are some of the animals the Nazis used to deride and dehumanize Jews. In a new linguistic analysis of dozens of Nazi speeches, articles, pamphlets, and posters, researchers now show how this process of anti-Semitic dehumanization, which began before the Nazis took power and helped fuel the party's popularity, was modulated to justify atrocity. In the years before the Holocaust, Jews were represented as being incapable of human feeling, Coinciding with the Nazis' early efforts to exterminate them, European Jews were depicted as agents of evil, as demons, as a nefarious cabal scheming up threats. The consequence, whether intentional or not, was to overcome the moral barriers to their mass elimination, and by the end of the war, the Third Reich had systematically murdered 6 million Jews. Railing against immigration had been a consistent feature of Donald Trump's presidential campaigns going back to his very first one. On the day that Trump launched his first presidential bid in June 2015, he accused Mexico of not sending their best people. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people, he said. But I speak to border guards and they're telling us what we're getting, he said, setting this tone for the MAGA movement. And since then, spanning 3 campaigns and 4 years in the White House, Trump has continued using inaccurate, derogatory, and racist language to refer to immigrants coming from all over the world. Now, some of Trump's comments mirror language used by white supremacists, such as his claim that immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country. Hitler used the term blood poisoning in Mein Kampf to criticize the mixing of races. Trump's derogatory comments are often targeted at non-white immigrants. In 2018, he referred to Haiti and African nations as shithole countries. His claim about immigrants eating pets in Ohio had no basis in fact, but they were pushed in part by a neo-Nazi group. In February last year, he said the Democrats say, please don't call them animals, they're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They are not humans, they're animals, Trump said. Trump frequently ties undocumented immigrants to a spike in crime, as does Tom Homan, his chief ICE enforcer. But data does not support a migrant-driven crime wave in America. There is no proof that there are millions of people from prisons and mental institutions coming into the country. Indeed, it's likely that Trump only ever referred to mental institutions because he saw the word asylum and presumed that that's where they were coming from. In the first few days of this new Trump regime, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers began raids to detain immigrants living in the U.S. illegally and, it seems, legally, and increased their number of arrests and deportations, including those without violent criminal records. Tom Homan, the border czar, said that the government's mass immigration deportation plans, which he said could include raids on schools and churches and other places previously considered havens, is all for the good of this nation.
How do you determine whether somebody is a gang member? What criteria do you use?
To various investigations. A lot of the ways we do it, law enforcement sensitive. I'm not going to share all that with you, but whether through social media, through the activities.
There is nothing new about the hateful political rhetoric that has become common today. In the lead-up to and during World War II, fascist leaders in Europe targeted Jews, Roma, gay people, and other groups as sources of social pollution, as beyond being human, while describing themselves as noble and decent, embodying a pure, uncorrupted nation. Trump and Elon Musk are obsessed with eugenics. In 1920, well before the German Nazi Party came to power in 1933, its platform declared that only someone of German blood, regardless of faith, can be a citizen. The Third Reich's demonizing language against Jews and other marginalized groups helped create its culture and justify its mass killings. Nazis consequently assumed the mantle of liberators as they killed those whom they saw as corrupting the pure race, in accordance with ideas of racial hygiene. Their hateful language was not limited to Europe. Fritz Kuhn, a German Nazi activist, served in the late 1930s and early 40s as leader of the German-American Bund, an organization of ethnic Germans and Nazi sympathizers living in the U.S. He addressed a Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden in New York City in 1939. On Sunday, October 27, 2024, Donald Trump gave a hate-filled speech at a MAGA campaign rally on the same site of Madison Square Garden, New York City, where he claimed that the day I take the oath of office, the migrant invasion of our country ends and the restoration of our country begins. the restoration of Trump's so-called white superior race, as Trump, like Putin, favors just one race of Americans. That's the end game. These are the warnings.
And the entire idea of Christian civilization that led to the founding of the United States of America, that was formed in Europe. The cultural bonds, the religious bonds, these things are going to last beyond political disagreements. But I think that Europe, and frankly, I would have said this about America a year ago, but Europe is at risk, I think, of engaging in civilizational suicide.
I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.